Going back to school is something your children will either love or hate, but regardless of which side of the fence they may fall, it's very important to be prepared for the beginning of the new school year. And who better to share some tips on how to get started than Nikki Bush. So Nikki, there are always two teams of people going back to school at this point. It's your first time school goers and your return students. How can families get ready for this busy time of year?
First things first, Tenji, get back into routine, get into the zone. We've had 5 weeks of school holidays, which means kids have been going to bed late, watching too much TV, getting up late in the morning, and we need to pull the reins in. And for those few days leading up to the start of school, get kids back into bed at the right time, bathing at the same time, eating dinner at a normal time, so that they kind of instinctively know that they're going back to school. Parents can do some other things too. How about making sure you have a play date for your child this week before school, or even the week of school, that they can connect with somebody they know they're going to see every day. Because psychologists tell us if a child just has one friend in the world that they can see every day, they'll be absolutely fine.
That sounds pretty easy to do, but in the home, how do we get children prepared before they even set out and go to school?
Well, once again, we go back to parents. We need to be prepared with all the right stationery, all the right school uniform requirements, because once again, for a child, there's nothing worse than pitching at school with the wrong school uniform or something missing, because you feel more confident if you're more together. So be organized. Get into that kitchen, and if you're making spaghetti bolognese for supper, double up, so that you can put one portion in the freezer, so that during that first really hectic week, while everyone's trying to settle, you're not slaving away over the stove. So being organized helps your children feel more organized.
So how was going back to school like for you?
Oh, I hated it. Every year I was just so nervous, and I think that most kids are pretty anxious. And I know for my children, my anxiety about them going to school on the first day spilled over. So one of the things that I actually did was I got my husband to take them to school on the first day of school, because he was nowhere near as anxious as I was. And that was way, way better. But the funny thing is about children, they are not nearly as anxious as we are. And when they get to school and we leave, they're absolutely fine for the most part. But it's while we're hovering around that they tend to play up to our anxiety. So just be aware of that as well.
So this time of year will always be quite a transitional phase for children. So what does it mean for families, and how can they turn that into a positive experience?
The upside is that every time your child goes through this, change equals growth. And so we have to understand that these experiences help children to become resourceful and resilient, which are two of the X factors for success for the future world of work. And so our children need to go through times that are not so perfect, not so happy, not so comfortable sometimes, in order to acquire those skills.
So in that regard, do you have any last tips for that really anxious preschooler and his or her mom?
Absolutely. I had a really anxious preschooler once, and I used to say to him, you know what, darling, I'm going to give you a big lipstick kiss on your hand, and every time you look at it, you'll know I'm thinking of you, and I'll be back at 12:30 to pick you up.